A narrator explains that when a soul seeps into a blood-stained object, it becomes a goblin. A sword, stained with its owner's blood, lies in the ground with a goblin's face on the hilt. A butterfly triggers visions, a screeching car, a woman's hand, and red snow. Only the goblin's bride can remove the sword and bring peace. An old grocer tells this tale to a woman who finds it sad that the goblin needs a bride to die. She jokes that the gods are cruel. As she leaves, the grocer warns her to pray sincerely in life or death situations. A soft-hearted god might listen. A man advises a boy with a battered face not to leave home, warning that life will worsen and he'll lose his mother. The man urges him to speak with his parents, subtly implying he's already helped him. The boy's father trips over a planter and injures himself. The man gives the boy lunch and school advice, even sharing an answer for a math problem. On a battlefield, General Kim Shin wields a sword engraved with a goblin's face. His victories earn admiration, but spark the king's jealousy. Falsely labeled a traitor, Shin's family is slaughtered. His sister, implied to be the queen, urges him to fight on. Wounded, Shin entrusts his sword to his second-in-command, asking to be killed. Cursed by the gods, he is left immortal, witnessing endless deaths until only his bride can free him by pulling the sword from his chest. In Seoul, a grim reaper causes a car accident and escorts a spirit to the afterlife. Shin, passing by, senses the reaper, and the two recognize each other. Shin returns to his magical home, greeted by his servant and Deokwa, who resembles an old companion from the Goryeo dynasty. The god who cursed Shin declares he will live forever, witnessing endless deaths. Revived with the sword still glowing in his chest, Shin kills the eunuch who betrayed him, but fails to save the queen. A boy from the past pledges to serve Shin, beginning a new bond. Shin saves a pregnant woman after hearing her prayer. She survives and gives birth to Ji Yoon-tak, who can see ghosts. Yoon-tak grows up aware of her gift and learns to ignore ghosts calling her the goblin's bride. After her mother's death, Samshin grandma intervenes when the Grim Reaper tries to erase Yoon-tak, advising her to live with people from the funeral. Yoon-tak struggles with her life and, on her birthday, wishes for freedom, a job, and a boyfriend. Her wish summons Shin by the sea, who is confused by the call. She mistakes him for a ghost, and amused, Shin vanishes. Shin returns to find the Grim Reaper has rented a room in his house. Though they argue, Shin lets him stay. Yoon-tak experiments with summoning Shin by blowing out candles, convinced she is the goblin's bride. She shows him her birthmark, but Shin dismisses her claim despite recalling the night he saved her mother. During one summoning, Yoon-tak accidentally follows Shin through a portal to Canada. Fascinated by his powers, she impulsively confesses her love and offers to marry him. Playfully, she drags him around, calling it their honeymoon. In a Christmas shop, she enjoys the decorations, but Shin shows little interest. They banter about love when she catches a maple leaf, claiming it will bring true love. At the hotel, she teases him about staying with a high schooler, and when he leaves, she worries he's meeting someone else. The Grim Reaper discusses a missing person case controlled by the gods and guides a couple to his tea shop. The man, responsible for deaths including Yoon-tak's mother, faces eternal regret if he doesn't drink Oblivion tea. In Canada, Shin visits the graves of the Yu family, reflecting on his burdensome immortality. Yoon-tak finds him there and cheerfully declares she'll be his bride in 200 years. They walk back, discussing the endless cycle of leaving and returning. Back in Seoul, Shin ponders how Yoon-tak can summon him. She reflects on Canada, sensing his sadness despite his powers. She lands a job at Sunny's chicken shop. Yoon-tak summons Shin mid-meal, leading to playful arguments, and she declares her love again. Shin consults the Reaper about looking flawless, and Deokwa, amused, teases Shin about being a goblin. At the shop, Sunny lends Yoon-tak an umbrella, suggesting she skip work. Sunny later visits a shaman who warns her about a man in a black hat. Sunny hopes he's handsome. Yoontak accidentally summons the Reaper, who warns her that death is inevitable, but senses someone is protecting her. Shin appears, and Yoontak, panicking, covers his eyes. Shin warns the Reaper to stay away or face consequences. Yoontak confronts Shin, asking why he denied being a goblin and why ghosts call her the bride. Shin says it's better she isn't, as she would resent him. At home, Shin reveals to the Reaper that Yoontak can't see the sword yet but might in time. Frustrated, Yoontak leaves her maple leaf in a book. Shin rushes to a summon, only to find Deokhwa smoking. He scolds him, mentioning it's a habit he quit 350 years ago. Later, Deokhwa teases Shin about sulking over a girl, and Shin ties him up in frustration. The Reaper warns Shin about complicating his job, but Shin dismisses him. Yoontak stays at the shop, feeling it's more of a home than her aunt's house. Curious, she learns from ghosts that Shin saved her mother, allowing her to be born. Shin watches over her from afar. Yoontak's aunt demands her back, but Sunny scares her off. Desperate for insurance money, the aunt sends gangsters after Yoontak. Yoontak, kidnapped, tries to summon Shin with a lighter, but fails. Her goblin mark glows, alerting Shin and the Reaper. They rush to her, appearing side by side through the fog, illuminated by the moon. Yoontak realizes they've come to save her. The loan sharks joke about Shin and the Reaper, but their car lights explode, and a bluish-green light splits the vehicle in two. Yoontak's side drifts to safety, while the loan sharks veer off. Shin appears, tosses his sword aside, retrieves Yoontak's scarf, and helps her out of the car. She falls into his arms, stunned, while the Reaper watches indifferently. Later, over a meal, Yoontak asks how Shin heard her thoughts without a flame. He jokes, "Maybe you think loudly." Grateful but conflicted, she declares she won't summon him again, hoping he finds himself. Shin learns from Deokhwa that Yoontak's aunt clings to her for her inheritance. Deciding to punish the aunt, he leaves gold bars in Yoontak's room, sparking a chaotic fight among her family. Shin reflects on his past, wondering if a K-pop idol is the reincarnated king. The Reaper helps a dying doctor find peace. Haunted by thoughts of Shin, Yoontak retrieves her maple leaf from a bookstore, where Deokhwa teases her. At home, Deokhwa introduces the Reaper as Shin's friend, and they sulk together after Shin kicks them out. That night, Shin panics at a bloody message and forces the Reaper to clean it. At the chicken shop, Sunny gives Yoontak her wages and advises her to visit a sauna. Distracted, Yoontak accidentally summons Shin, who appears delighted. At a cafe, Yoontak praises the Reaper's looks, annoying Shin. He magically orchestrates a meet-cute between strangers, noting that happiness often turns into misery. Yoontak wonders if her life is punishment, but Shin insists she isn't the goblin's bride. Later, Shin and the Reaper reflect on their loneliness. Shin struggles to teleport to Yoontak since she hasn't summoned him. Frustrated, the Reaper suggests calling her, but Shin doesn't have her number. Yoontak vents her frustrations to her late mother at the sea, and Shin appears, explaining the rain was due to his sadness. She smiles, warning she'll worry whenever it rains. That night, Yoontak arrives at Shin's door, determined to know what she's supposed to see. When she points at his chest, the sword materializes through his heart, right before their eyes. When Shin asks why Yoontak never mentioned the sword, she says she was being polite, not wanting marriage to interfere with her college plans. Excited, she asks about her first duty as the goblin's bride. Shin bursts into the Reaper's room, panicking about his impending death. The Reaper reminds him this was his goal, though Shin admits part of him wants to live. Yoontak pleads to stay with Shin, promising to live quietly. Shin reluctantly agrees, but says he can't hear her thoughts anymore, though it felt like he could when she was in danger. To her surprise, Shin arranges for her to stay at a luxury hotel. While she enjoys it initially, loneliness soon sets in. Deokhwa finds Shin brooding over emotions like sadness and joy. which feel burdensome to him. The Reaper admits feeling the same after meeting Sunny, wondering why he cried. Meanwhile, Yoon-tak notices gloomy weather, suspecting Shin is depressed. Deok-hwa shows off by driving Eun-tak to school in a flashy car, embarrassing her. Meanwhile, Yoon-tak's aunt tries to exchange Shin's gold bars but is arrested, her memory of Yoon-tak wiped. The Reaper, curious about Sunny, reenacts her hair flip and struggles with how to contact her. Shin visits the hospital to guide a soul, reflecting on how few people change after miracles. The Reaper asks why he takes on such burdens, and Shin replies, "Because if I didn't, I wouldn't be cool." Later, Shin avoids Yoon-tak, so she confronts him, threatening to summon him endlessly. He downplays her anger and suggests room service, but she insists on convenience store snacks. Drunk, Shin admits he dislikes the idea of her dating anyone else. When she asks if he likes her, he denies it, but his hesitation betrays him. They teleport to Quebec, where Yoon-tak teases him with a steak knife, comparing it to the sword in his chest. Shin confirms her description of the tiger hilt sword. Proud, she noticed. She asks if he's been happy, and he admits it's impossible to be sad for 1,000 years straight, though she insists on the idea of sad love. Over dinner, she presses him about the sword's origin. He confesses it was placed by someone he never expected, hinting at deep regret. Yoon-tak says she'd like to live a long life if it's with him, surprising Shin. Later, Shin amuses her by conjuring a sword from a fountain, though he jokes he can't produce gold. Before parting, Yoon-tak gives him a poetry book, "The Stars Might Take Your Pain Away," with her favorite poems transcribed inside. As she crosses the street toward him, the crosswalk paint shifts from yellow to orange beneath her feet. Captivated by her presence, Shin recites a poem in his head. Memories of his past death flash briefly, but they fade as he focuses on Yoon-tak's bright smile. A single maple leaf falls gently onto the poetry book as she runs to him. Back in Seoul, Yoon-tak offers to walk home, and Shin, without a glance, lets her go, leaving her quietly hurt. At home, Shin reflects on Yoon-tak and the curse that binds him. A sudden pain from the sword in his chest reminds him that only she can end his immortal existence. Meanwhile, Yoon-tak listens to a radio show on life's changing genres. She helps a ghost stock her fridge to comfort her mother, receiving gratitude from the spirit. Later, the ghost finds peace as the Reaper guides her to the afterlife. On a bridge, Sunny confronts the Reaper about his silence. Their awkward chat leaves her strangely charmed by his odd behavior. Shin and the Reaper share drinks, reflecting on their struggles. Shin torn between joy and sorrow, and the Reaper confused by his feelings for Sunny. Shin contemplates leaving Yoon-tak to spare her pain, though his attachment to her grows. Deok-hwa warns Yoon-tak about her hotel bill. When Shin arrives, Yoon-tak teases him about paying it and jokes about summoning him endlessly. Shin extinguishes the candles, promising to stay by her side. On the drive home, he softly reveals his name, Kim Shin, earning a warm smile from Yoon-tak as their bond deepens. At home, Shin and the Reaper bicker over life arrangements, eventually making peace. Shin offers Yoon-tak his room. That night, Yoon-tak discovers Shin's journal, sensing the sorrow in his ancient words. Shin recalls encounters with gods, a butterfly on his sword, and the burden of immortality. The next morning, Yoon-tak wakes to find Shin and the Reaper playfully bickering over breakfast. She jokes, asking Shin to stay happy to prevent rain, and the Reaper not to take her away, bewildering them both. Deok-hwa brings smartphones, and Shin struggles with the technology, mistaking the Play Store for a physical location. They attempt a video call, amusing Deok-hwa with their clumsiness. Intrigued by Shin's past as a general, Yoon-tak researches his history, but is left with more questions. While shopping, Shin flaunts his phone knowledge to impress Yoon-tak. She picks a goblin-like toy, joking that it resembles him. Shin warns nothing between them should be taken for granted. The Reaper reflects on his encounter with Sunny, and with Deokwa's help, nervously calls her. Back at home, Shin's affection for Yuntak grows, but jealousy flares when he notices her bond with the Reaper. In frustration, Shin blurts out that he's her boyfriend, leaving them both stunned. Shin later invites Yuntak to dinner, where time slows for him. He envisions a future where Yuntak, now 29, lives happily without him, her memories of him erased. The vision shifts between their past moments, with the sword that once connected them now missing. Tears fill Shin's eyes as he resigns himself to disappearing, knowing she will live content without him. Whispering aloud, he reflects, "I made that choice." The 19-year-old Yuntak overhears, confused by his sadness. Back home, Sunny arranges a double date with Reaper and Deokwa. Avoiding Yuntak, Shin suddenly asks her to pull the sword, but she resists, recalling his warning that knowing the truth would make her resent him. Shin admits the sword symbolizes punishment for leading innocents to death. Moved, Yuntak reassures him, "A god wouldn't give you this power if you were bad." On the date, Reaper introduces himself awkwardly as Kim Woobin, but it unravels when Deokwa is recognized as a Chibol heir. Frustrated, Reaper ends the date with magic. Later, he gives Sunny a jade ring but grows jealous when she asks for Deokwa's number. At home, Reaper advises Shin to embrace or hide his emotions. Shin confesses the sword's pain worsens, and Reaper awkwardly offers a hug, which Shin retaliates against with his sword. Yuntak enjoys living with Shin, but feels grateful and resolves to pull the sword to free him. Reaper warns her, but she insists on doing something meaningful. Meanwhile, Reaper accidentally reveals himself to Sunny, who runs away in embarrassment. Shin waits outside a bookstore, reflecting, "Life and death walk toward me." When Yuntak arrives, they joke about ugly days. She thanks Shin for saving her mother, showing him how to gently caress her head. At home, Shin surprises Yuntak with a Christmas tree. When she mentions pulling the sword, he panics and runs to Reaper, worrying that she might love him. Reaper mocks him for worrying about age. Shin spends more time with Yuntak, savoring their moments together. He tells her, "Today, the sword." In the buckwheat garden, Yuntak proposes they meet every year on the first snow. Realizing he planned to leave before the snow, Shin signs the contract, admitting, "It's selfish, but I wanted this memory." When Yuntak tries to pull the sword, it vanishes. Realizing something, Yuntak pulls him into a kiss. As snowflakes reverse into the sky, time rewinds. She admits it was her first kiss and scolds him for wasting it. Frustrated, she tries again, but Shin pulls away. Determined, she vows to love him to keep her belongings. Apologizing for causing snow, she watches as Shin freezes the flakes midair and storms off, but she follows, knowing he can't break their contract. At home, the Reaper tells Deokwa that Shin ended his immortal life, leaving Deokwa in tears. Moments later, Shin and Yuntak return, stunning the Reaper. Overjoyed, Deokwa hugs Shin, but won't surrender his card when Shin jokes about taking it back. During dinner, Shin demands his gifts back, leading to playful bickering when Yuntak declares her love and the Reaper joins in. Later, Shin confides in Grandpa, admitting his regret over saying goodbye. Grandpa urges him to embrace life, calling him a miracle. Reaper questions if Yuntak is truly the bride, as she couldn't pull the sword. Yuntak jokes about a prettier bride, amusing the Reaper. The next day, Shin nags her about chores, and they bicker playfully. She reminds him of his words that every day with her was good, and he reluctantly agrees. Yuntak suggests changing their relationship status, but Shin refuses. Reaper hints love might be the answer. Overhearing, Shin awkwardly brings up their kiss, insisting half belongs to him, though he denies wanting it. The Reaper, watching, laments his lack of business cards. Reaper urges Shin to kick Yuntak out, but Shin refuses, secretly enjoying her presence. Shin reviews her contract, which asks him to be her protector and boyfriend until she finds someone else. They teleport to school just in time for her exam, and afterward, her friends surprise her with a cake, overwhelming her with joy. Shin grows jealous when Yoon-tak smiles at Tae-hee, a baseball player, suspecting he is the man from his vision. At home, Shin sulks, wishing Tae-hee had been stuck playing piano. Meanwhile, Yoon-tak fondly recalls her crush on Tae-hee, unaware Shin once blocked her view of him at the batting cages. Shin takes Yoon-tak's ice cream, demanding to know why she's upset. She teases that he's no longer beautiful after meeting her first love, Tae-hee, prompting Shin to boast about his baseball skills and storm off to confront Tae-hee, recalling a childhood bet where Tae-hee wished his piano to disappear. Shin asks the Reaper to erase Tae-hee's memory, but the Reaper refuses, burning his bean sprouts in protest. Yoon-tak sneaks into Shin's room to retrieve her contract, but finds a line in his poem. It was first love. Frustrated, she reflects on giving Shin her first kiss. Later, Tae-hee asks her out, intensifying Shin's jealousy. The Reaper, dealing with his own romantic woes, interrupts Yoon-tak's date, posing as her father and warning her to answer his calls. While walking, Shin feels sharp pain from the sword in his chest. Yoon-tak grabs the sword, and it moves. Shin flings Yoon-tak away to stop her from pulling the sword, but catches her mid-air, narrowly saving her from a truck. The crash sparks a street wreck. The truck crashes into parked cars, bursting into flames. Holding her tightly, Shin realizes that his immortality will end through her. Shin realizes his hesitation was due to his feelings for her. At home, Yoon-tak awakens, relieved she is the true bride, though Shin gives only a faint smile. Deok-hwa handles the accident cleanup with Reaper by silencing witnesses and erasing memories. Exhausted, they return home, where Yoon-tak finds Shin passed out, worried he's over-medicated. He later admits that first love hurts, sparking her jealousy. Shin secretly helps a man in distress, burning a noose and leaving him food. Yoon-tak watches in admiration as the man reunites with his daughter, brought home by Samshin Granny. Later, Shin jokes about failed retail jobs and teases Yoon-tak about her feelings, leaving her flustered. Reaper discovers that Sunny is connected to his past, suspecting she is Kim's son. Meanwhile, Shin grows jealous of Tae-hee and sends his old piano back to him. Yoon-tak meets a ghost hinting that her fading birthmark holds meaning. Reaper continues spying on Sunny, drawn to her despite himself. Before Yoon-tak's university interview, Shin wraps her scarf around her, enjoying her playful jealousy. On the way, Shin prevents a bus crash by stopping a thief, saving lives. Reaper, confused by this miracle, realizes that Shin's interventions complicate fate. Shin privately reflects on the burden of his immortality and the pain of being close to Yoon-tak. After her interview, Shin picks Yoon-tak up with a car full of socks, joking about starting a sock business. As they talk, a butterfly, symbolizing God, appears, and Shin bitterly questions his fate. He admits he likes Yoon-tak, indirectly confessing his feelings. Meanwhile, Sunny reveals her real name is Kim's son, unsettling Reaper as it confirms her past connection. At the temple, Shin writes Kim's son and Wang Yo's names on lanterns, recalling the king's betrayal and how the sword became both his curse and salvation. Samshin Granny warns that if the sword isn't pulled, Yoon-tak will die, as their fates are linked. Reaper explains to Yoon-tak that pulling the sword will end Shin's life, making her realize his death is the only way to protect her. Tearfully, Shin reflects on his long life, accepting that, on just the right day, he experienced first love, and now he seeks the heavens' permission to confess it. Yoon-tak asks Reaper if pulling the sword will make Shin disappear. Feeling betrayed by his confirmation, she leaves, taking Mr. Buckwheat. Shin learns from Samshin Grandma that Yoon-tak will face death until the sword is removed. Desperate, he searches for her, discovering her empty room and farewell note. Reaper admits he told her the truth to save Shin, despite the fallout. Shin tracks Yoon-tak to a ski lodge, where she accuses him of using her to prolong his life. Though he asks her to pull the sword, Yoon-tak refuses, saying she'd rather die than kill him. Despite her anger, Shin offers quiet comfort, staying by her side. When he gives her exam results, Yoon-tak teases him for using them as an excuse to see her. An accident leaves Yoon-tak trapped under shelves. Sensing trouble, Shin rushes to find her. Reaper delivers news of her death card, confirming that her fate is tied to the sword. Shin saves her in time, carrying her to safety. At the hospital, doctors reveal Shin covered her bill. On a gondola ride, Yoon-tak summons him with a match, only to find him waiting, sharing a moment of peace. She declares she can no longer see the sword, leaving Shin relieved. Sunny consults a shaman, who warns that the jade ring carries grudges, hinting the mysterious man in her life might be a grim reaper. Reaper sneaks into her shop with the ring, but is caught, confessing his identity. Amused but uneasy, Sunny reflects on their strange connection. Shin convinces Yoon-tak to return from the lodge, bringing Mr. Buckwheat with her. At home, she tearfully expresses that this is the first time she has a place to call home, making Shin smile while Reaper teases him. Later, the two men handle cosmic disturbances, interrupted by a human wandering into the Reaper's domain. Shin jokes about human will changing fate, while Reaper laments the extra paperwork. Yoon-tak rekindles her bond with Sunny and defends a boy from bullies. She is thrilled to be accepted into college, but surprised to learn Shin paid her tuition. Pretending not to know, Shin claims it was meant to be a secret. They joke about their future, hinting at a long life together. Reaper awkwardly follows Yoon-tak's advice to impress Sunny, guiding her safely down the sidewalk. His forced smile triggers faint memories in Sunny, deepening her suspicion. Later, during a double date at the chicken shop, Reaper accidentally calls Sunny by her real name, alarming her. When Sunny grabs Reaper's hand, he glimpses a haunting vision of her as the queen from Shin's past, confirming she is Kim Sun's reincarnation. Memories of their tragic connection flood back, while Shin watches from a distance, sensing something profound unfolding, unaware of the Jade Ring's influence. She jokes about him possibly being a grim reaper, but his silence unsettles her. Inside, Shin stares at Sunny until Yoon-tak, annoyed, slams down her tray, teasing him about trying to impress her. Shin denies being interested in beauty, which only frustrates Yoon-tak further. Outside, Sunny guesses Reaper might be married or part of the NIS. When she jokes again about him being a grim reaper, his silence leaves her puzzled, and she hurries back inside. Reaper remains behind, wondering who Sunny really is. Sunny later explains to Shin that she calls him Oraboni because it sounds better than just you. Shin discovers that Sunny shares the same name as his sister, Kim Sun, deepening his suspicion. Reaper begins to connect Sunny with the portrait of Kim Sun, realizing their encounters may be tied to his forgotten past. Meanwhile, Yoon-tak accuses Shin of setting up her job at Sunny's shop to avoid her. Playfully, she jokes about needing a boyfriend, prompting Shin to grumble about Tae-hee as he strokes her hair, leaving her smiling. Shin reflects on his sister's life, recalling how she married the young King Wang-yo, whom Shin had vowed to protect. However, manipulated by Eunuch Park, the king grew increasingly jealous of Shin, leading to betrayal and exile. On her wedding day, Shin had escorted Kim Sun, promising her happiness, but her warnings about Eunuch Park were ignored. Trapped in palace politics, she met a tragic end. Shin remembered helplessly watching her execution, heartbroken by her innocent smile, unaware of the king's insecurities. The story leaves Reaper in disbelief, wondering if Sunny could be Kim Sun's reincarnation. Shin lightens the mood by joking that Reaper might be his sister's reincarnation and offers him the jade ring. Yoon-tak interrupts, and Shin leaves with her, leaving Reaper relieved but irritated when Shin adds that Kim Sun liked being alone too. Later, Yoon-tak shares with Shin the story of her ghost friend Jung-hyun, who asked her to visit her hometown with flowers. She praises Shin, calling him both strange and beautiful, leaving him flattered. At Jung Hyun's grave, Yoon-tak finds a photo of Jung Hyun and her mother from their school days. Surprised, she asks Shin to open a portal to the library, where Jung Hyun explains that she and Yoon-tak's mother had promised to exchange gifts for each other's children. Jung Hyun directs Yoon-tak to a locker containing bank books, the same ones her aunt had accused her of hiding. She advises Yoon-tak to use the newest one for tuition, and after a heartfelt goodbye, fades away, ready to reunite with her mother. At the seashore, Yoon-tak tells her mother about Jung Hyun's friendship, expressing gratitude for everything. Shin comforts her, joking about keeping the rain away to avoid attracting NASA's attention. Meanwhile, Shin instructs Secretary Kim to ensure Yoon-tak's aunt forfeits the insurance payout. Kim confronts the aunt in prison, recording her confession and presenting her with two options: return the money or face a prolonged custody battle. Kim warns her that her threats hold no power. Reaper, still preoccupied with thoughts of Sunny, freezes his phone until a call from her brings him back to reality. They arrange to meet, and when Reaper dresses for the occasion, Shin warns him to wear comfortable shoes for the long walk home. On New Year's Eve, Reaper apologizes to Sunny for being late, but she hints at ending things, echoing words from Shin's premonition. Reaper is left stunned as she tells him not to contact her anymore. At midnight, Yoon-tak bursts into Shin's room, excited to celebrate adulthood with soju. They drink happily at the Pojangmacha, where they encounter the cyclist from the bus incident. After stepping outside, Shin confronts the gang accompanying the cyclist and, using a mop, defeats them effortlessly. Impressed and tipsy, Yoon-tak jokes about their first kiss, only to discover that time freezes for everyone but her. Realizing his powers don't affect her, Shin kisses her properly. The next morning, Yoon-tak prepares a traditional New Year's meal, reflecting on her experiences with Reaper and Shin. When she runs out of leeks, Reaper and Shin go shopping, returning triumphantly despite being scolded by a passing motorcyclist. Instead of retaliating, they wish the rider a happy new year. Over breakfast, Reaper shares the news of his breakup, and Yoon-tak encourages him to call Sunny. Shin jokes about Reaper going through a 300-year-old's tough phase, prompting Reaper to grab Shin's hand in frustration, only to discover that he can't see any visions. Disgusted, Shin pulls away. Later, Shin drags Reaper to Sunny's stand for roasted sweet potatoes. Their awkward exchange leaves Shin fumbling with compliments about Sunny's outfit. Back home, Reaper admits to Yoon-tak that he posed as an angel during their date, much to her amusement. Shin reflects on his premonition of giving Yoon-tak a necklace in Quebec, realizing that it will be his gift to her. Meanwhile, Reaper seeks breakup advice from a deceased psychiatrist. Shin plays Baduk with Grandpa, who hints at his approaching death. During the game, Shin feels an unsettling force, realizing what is to come. At the barbershop, Grandpa subtly reveals he is preparing to leave for a peaceful place, hinting at his passing. Shin and Reaper drink together, discussing Grandpa's death card and Reaper's breakup. Shin expresses his concern about Sunny sharing his sister's name, Kim's son, while Reaper reveals that Sunny may indeed be the reincarnation of Shin's sister. Reaper shares his vision of a woman in royal robes being pierced by an arrow, and Shin completes the memory, recalling how the woman had smiled and asked if she looked beautiful, only to receive the response that she looked ugly. Reaper confirms that Sunny is indeed the reincarnation of Kim's son. In a final revelation, a flashback shows an older Wang Yo in Goryo, revealing that he and Reaper are one and the same. After confirming Sunny was Kim's son in a past life, Shin rushes to her shop, calling her Sun Ah. Confused, Sunny jokes and kicks him and Reaper out. At home, Reaper and Yoon-tak discuss Sunny's connection to Shin, but both deny romantic feelings. Shin frequently visits Sunny with gifts from her past, annoying her, and Yoon-tak learns from Deokhwa that Sunny was indeed Shin's sister. Curious, Sunny visits Shin's home, where he shows her the portrait of Kim's son, but it triggers no memories. Shin recounts Kim's son's tragic marriage to King Wang Yo, manipulated by Eunuch Park, leading to her death. Sunny, feeling a strange connection, asks if the king was reincarnated, hinting at her feelings for Reaper. Later, Sunny struggles with emotional pain, while Yuntak reflects on how surreal Sunny's new reality has become. Shin grows jealous when Yuntak mentions Tai Hi Appa, teasing her about traveling to Canada with him. On graduation day, Samshin Granny surprises Yuntak with flowers and scolds her teacher for failing her. Shin gifts Yuntak her mother's insurance payout, revealing her aunt signed it over. Reaper then brings a death card for Yuntak, predicting a fatal fall in 2 weeks, forcing Shin to reveal that only pulling the sword will stop her death. Torn, Yuntak debates pulling the sword or dying together, while Shin vows to protect her. Despite the danger, Yuntak insists on living normally, playfully summoning Shin for minor events until he admits he missed her. They share a tender moment as cherry blossoms fall in winter. Reaper sneaks into Sunny's shop but drops the jade ring when startled, revealing himself. Sunny realizes the truth, that he's a grim Reaper dreaming of a happy ending despite their tragic fate. Meanwhile, Yuntak encounters a ghost wife seeking revenge, unknowingly fulfilling the death card's prophecy. When the ghost's husband pushes her off a high ledge, she summons Shin, who arrives in time to save her and warns the man to seek justice. Back home, Shin hugs Yuntak, relieved, while she jokes about blind dates and college life, earning his playful disapproval. At the chicken shop, Yuntak meets a sinister ghost, Park Jung-haeon, the eunuch from the past, who greets her ominously as the Goblin's bride. Meanwhile, Sunny, debating whether to see Reaper, ultimately gives in. Reaper reflects on his erased memories and reveals to Shin that Sunny knows his true identity. Shin grows suspicious of Deokwa, suspecting him of knowing more than he lets on. At the nightclub, Deokwa, briefly possessed by a god, hints at orchestrating Shin's and Reaper's fates, but Granny warns him to let them choose their own paths. After the encounter, Deokwa returns to himself with no memory of what happened. Later, Shin gives Yuntak her mother's bankbook, secured after her aunt's release, and Reaper delivers a death note for the chairman, allowing Shin to say goodbye. Deokwa struggles with grief, but resolves to grow into his responsibilities. At dinner, Reaper admits envy toward Deokwa's family and sparks Shin's brief vision of Wang Yo's face. Sunny fully accepts Reaper's nature, and Yuntak confirms her role as the Goblin's bride. On her first day of college, Shin gifts Yuntak a necklace engraved with destiny and forbids her from dating Tae-hee. Playfully, she records a message for Shin, who later encounters a man from his past and forgives him, setting his life on a new path. Yuntak summons Shin into a photo booth to tease him before handing him money to repay Sunny for sweet potatoes. Mentioning Tae-hee's move to America, she kisses Shin goodbye. Outside the chicken shop, she encounters eunuch Park, who reveals that Reaper is the reincarnated Wang Yo, the king who ordered Shin's death. Park vows to bring about Shin's downfall. Shaken, Yuntak struggles with what to do. Reaper later admits to her that Reapers are created from their past sins and fears he is Wang Yo, the man responsible for Shin's suffering. Meanwhile, Sunny learns from the woman Reaper that she had unknowingly aided eunuch Park in her past life. Reaper kisses Sunny, triggering memories of her tragic past. Overwhelmed, he erases her memories to protect her and leaves her in tears. The next day, Shin reconnects with Sunny, who now remembers their past lives. They embrace, reconciling as siblings. Reaper receives a death card for Yuntak, heightening the tension. Shin confronts her about Park's warning, and she recounts the encounter. Determined to act, Shin patrols the rooftops and faces Park, who taunts him by revealing that Reaper is Wang Yo. Realizing the truth, Shin confronts Reaper at the temple, confirming his identity. The encounter mirrors Shin's final moments in Goryeo, but this time, Shin seizes Reaper by the throat, declaring himself the general standing before his king. A flashback reveals Wang You's anguish as he burned Sun's blood-stained clothes, banishing the past. Now Shin and Reaper stand face to face, the weight of their shared history pressing down on them. Shin releases him, bitterly remarking that even after 900 years, fate still favors the king. Yuntak, aware of Reaper's identity, lets Shin handle it alone. Shin moves out, leaving Reaper to return to an empty home. Sunny, regaining her memories, reflects on meeting both her brother and lover again in this lifetime. Reaper confronts the ghost of Eunuch Park, who taunts him, claiming he will lose Sunny once more. Furious, Reaper vows to protect her. Reaper gives Yuntak the jade ring to return to Sunny. Conflicted, Sunny wonders if the king ever mourned her, choosing to hold on to the ring as a symbol of their fates. Meeting with Shin, Sunny asks him to let go of the past, but Shin warns that he can't forgive so easily. Meanwhile, Grim Reaper investigators restore Reaper's memories, forcing him to confront the madness that led him to kill his loved ones. And himself. Yuntak encounters Park again, who promises to kill Sunny. When he attacks, the mark on her neck repels him, though she collapses. Sunny carries her home, questioning if Yuntak is truly human. Yuntak brushes it off with humor, knowing fate binds them all. Yuntak summons Shin, and they embrace. He notices her mark is fading, making it harder to protect her. Shin learns Park is targeting Sunny and vows to stop him with Reaper's help. Reaper, now on probation, receives Yuntak's death note, marking her death just a week away. When Shin asks why he faced death knowingly in Goryeo, he reveals his final words. "You were loved." Shin realizes the sword in his chest must be used to defeat Park Jung-haeon, even if it means sacrificing himself. Under stormy skies, the weight of his fate settles on him. Sunny and Reaper share a painful farewell, ending their relationship, knowing it's the price Reaper must pay. Shin and Yuntak enjoy a brief, joyful trip, though Shin silently says his goodbyes. Back home, Park strikes, taking advantage of Yuntak's fading mark. As she struggles to summon Shin, Park possesses her, forcing her to pull the sword. Reaper exorcises Park from Yuntak, but the danger persists. To save her, Shin pulls the sword from his chest. The blade ignites, and with a powerful strike, he slays Park Jung-haeon. Drained, Shin collapses, knowing his time has come. As Reaper watches in sorrow, Shin declares, "I send word now. I died a heroic death." Yuntak pleads with Shin not to leave, sobbing that he promised never to let go. Gently, Shin reassures her, "My life was a reward because I met you." As his body dissolves into embers, Shin promises to return as rain and snow, begging for even that small mercy. His final words are filled with love. "I love you. I've already done that." As Shin's fire consumes him, he says his final goodbyes to Yuntak before dissolving into ashes scattered by the wind. Devastated, Yuntak collapses. Memories of Shin are erased from the minds of everyone who knew him: Yuntak, Reaper, Sunny, and Diakwa. In desperation, Yuntak writes herself a note. "Remember, his name is Kim Shin. He'll come as the rain, the first snow. You are his bride." Shin, trapped in a snowy limbo between life and death, pleads with God to let him return, even as rain or snow, to find Yuntak again. But the butterfly god declares this eternity of wandering to be his punishment, leaving Shin to walk alone. 9 years pass. Now a radio PD, Yuntak carries an unexplainable sadness, unaware of her connection to Shin. One snowy day, Shin clutches his old contract and collapses in limbo. As Yuntak blows out a birthday candle, she whispers, "Somebody, please save me." This summons Shin back to the mortal world, and he appears before her, just as he did on her 19th birthday. Overcome with emotion, he hugs her, though she does not recognize him, yet finds him strangely familiar. Shin reconnects with the people from his past. Though Diakwa and Sunny have no memory of him, Reaper remembers everything. In a tearful reunion, Reaper apologizes for his past sins, and the two share a moment of quiet forgiveness. Shin visits Yuntak again, realizing that even without her memories, their bond remains. Flowers bloom and spring warmth surrounds them, hinting at the enduring magic of their love. At a coffee shop, Yuntak playfully challenges Shin, curious about how much he knows about her. When she asks where he works, Shin points to Grandpa's company and jokes that he's the boss. Skeptical, she hands him an ad proposal, later learning from CEO Kim that Shin personally requested the contract. Confused yet intrigued, Yuntak starts feeling an inexplicable connection to him. Her radio program thrives thanks to the sponsorship, but Yuntak is haunted by memories just beyond her reach. Flipping through her journal, she discovers notes about Kim Shin, claiming herself as his bride. Her friend jokes that Kim Shin might be a ghost, reminding her of the spirits she used to see in high school. Shin reconnects with Reaper and Deakwa, who hands him an old letter Yuntak once wrote in Canada, addressed to her mother. The letter describes magical moments with someone she calls a Jushi, deepening the mystery of her forgotten past. Reaper delivers the letter to Sunny, using it as an excuse to see her again. Sunny passes the letter to Yuntak, who wonders how she could have sent it from Canada despite never visiting. Comparing the handwriting with her journal entries, she begins to suspect that a Jushi might be Kim Shin. Later, Shin calls her, and when she blows out a candle, he suddenly appears. They make plans for a date, and Shin smiles, noticing she still wears the perfume he gave her long ago. Yuntak tells Shin about her heart illness, not knowing what caused it. He promises to stay by her side, even joking that he'll be weirder than her. She mentions a planned trip to Quebec, hoping to find answers about her past. Shin encourages her with words she once said to him, leaving her puzzled but moved. In Quebec, Yuntak encounters the Canadian ghost Appa again, shocked to realize she can see ghosts once more. While searching for him, a street vendor notices her destiny necklace and asks if she's happy with the man who ordered it a decade ago. Meanwhile, Shin travels the world, avoiding Quebec until the Reaper urges him to return. Reluctantly, Shin returns, humorously climbing out of a sarcophagus and grumbling about the Reaper. Shin and Yuntak meet at a red door, sharing coffee as she teases him about knowing her preferences and being a chaebol. He offers to be her guide and hints at lingering emotions from his first love. Outside her hotel, Yuntak confronts him about meeting 10 years ago. Though awkward, they agree on dinner, setting a future Shin had long foreseen. At dinner, Shin reflects on his first love, suggesting she forgot him. Yuntak grumbles that reunions with first loves are disappointing. Shin proposes seeing her again before her flight, making her smile. Meanwhile, Sunny contacts the Reaper after watching CCTV footage of his visit to the chicken shop, setting up a bittersweet reunion. Later, Sunny meets Reaper, now going by Wang Yo, and they exchange tender words before parting in tears. In a flashback, Sunny recalls meeting a boyish god who vowed to stay out of her life. 5 years ago, Yuntak moved into the rooftop apartment, rekindling her friendship with Sunny. In the present, Sunny recognizes Shin, but holds back her emotions, later weeping alone. Reaper mourns over Kim Sun's portrait, while Sunny writes a farewell note, hoping for a reunion in the next life. Waiting at the restaurant, Shin wonders if Yuntak is better off without him. Suddenly, as Yuntak gazes at a maple leaf, her memories flood back. Realizing she missed him deeply, she runs through the streets, blows out a candle, and summons Shin, who appears and kisses her tenderly. Back at the hotel, Yuntak marvels that Shin kept his promise to return with the rain and first snow. She asks why he left and how she pulled the sword, and Shin apologizes. They forgive each other, sharing drinks and reminiscing about their love. Shin vows to make her happy from now on. The next day, they part reluctantly, with Shin joking about picking her up from jail. Yuntak promises to see him soon, and they reunite warmly in Korea, sharing another passionate kiss, which transports them back to their hotel room in Quebec. Yoon-tak visits Sunny, who isn't home. Meanwhile, the Reaper oversees the emotional reunion of an elderly couple separated by war. Later, the Reaper meets Yoon-tak, who proudly declares she's 29, knowing it's a vulnerable age to encounter a Reaper. Yoon-tak summons Shin often, whether for dinner or emotional moments. In one tearful night, she fears it's all a dream, but Shin reassures her, promising to always come when she calls. One morning, Shin meets Sunny, who encourages him to make Yoon-tak happy. At home, Deok-hwa discovers Reaper's identity and demands proof. Reaper vanishes and reappears, while Shin levitates a skillet, leaving Deok-hwa paranoid about their supernatural abilities. Yoon-tak reconnects with her aunt, who criticizes her choices. Later, she learns Sunny is moving away. Yoon-tak reveals she's found everything she was searching for, including her long-lost love. Sunny hints she already met him. Yoon-tak realizes the ghost she met in Canada was Shin. When he arrives, she recalls his words about Quebec and understands she was always his first love. Under falling cherry blossoms, Shin proposes, "On another day, that is just so. Will you be this man of Goryeo's bride?" That night, she shares the news with her late mother under the stars, with the Unni ghost offering emotional support. Meanwhile, Reaper confronts a wealthy man about the inevitability of death. At the studio, Shin grows annoyed upon hearing about Yoon-tak's potential blind date. Using his powers, he scatters her belongings and interrupts the meeting, announcing their engagement. To avoid complications, he suggests they marry by the weekend. Over lunch, Shin introduces Yoon-tak to Deok-hwa, joking that marriage will prevent blind dates. Deok-hwa teases that he's her ideal match, leaving everyone laughing. When Deok-hwa tells CEO Kim about the wedding, Shin's playful powers overwhelm the CEO, causing him to faint. During an intimate ceremony in a buckwheat field, Shin and Yoon-tak exchange vows, promising eternal love. Reaper and Deok-hwa join the celebration, though their antics leave CEO Kim bewildered. The night ends with Shin serenading Yoon-tak as they quietly embrace. Their happiness is short-lived. Reaper discovers that a death note for children on a bus has vanished, signaling fate has shifted. On her way home, Yoon-tak, speaking with Shin over the phone, sees a truck heading toward a school bus. Without hesitation, she swerves her car into the truck's path, saving the children. Her final thoughts are of her love for Shin. Shin, sensing the tragedy, rushes to her. From a rooftop, Reaper watches sorrowfully, explaining that human sacrifice, a choice only humans can make, defies the gods' plans. When the delayed death note arrives, Reaper mourns the beauty of Yoon-tak's selfless act. Yoon-tak's soul lingers on the street, relieved the children are safe. Through tears, the Reaper performs his duties, listening as she admits her fear but insists she couldn't have acted differently. Passers-by call her a hero, unaware of the supernatural events. In the tea room, Yoon-tak learns this was her first life and smiles, knowing she has 3 more. When a heartbroken Shin arrives, she comforts him, urging him to live and laugh in her memory. She asks him to wait for her, promising they will meet again. Refusing the oblivion tea, she steps into the light, leaving him with a silent goodbye. Shin sends a message into the sky, honoring Yoon-tak's love. For the next 30 years, he revisits their memories, keeping her scarf as a reminder. Reaper receives his final death note, Kim Sun's. On their last day, he places a jade ring on her finger, expressing remorse, and they walk into the afterlife together, free from their burdens. Alone again, Shin reflects on his losses. A kind stranger offers him a sandwich by the river, encouraging him to re-engage with life. Later, the stranger assists CEO Kim, hinting at Shin's quiet influence. Leaving home, Shin stumbles upon a film set and sees Reaper and Sunny, reincarnated and enjoying new lives. Watching them, brings him peace. In Quebec, Shin visits the Yu family graveyard. A girl in a school uniform approaches with a dandelion. It's Yuntak. Shin embraces her warmly. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe for more recaps.